Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where every day I try and prove that technology really does work best when it brings people together. Today's guest is Eva Murray, and she is a technology evangelist at Exasol, which is the provider of the world's fastest in-memory database. And she's also responsible for executing the company's data-driven strategy and one of Tableau's Zen Masters. That sounds incredibly cool, doesn't it? Where she sits with 29 other world-leading data experts. And she's also co-authored a book, Data Analysis and Visualization Best Practices, and even hosts her own podcast too. But ultimately, her passion is bringing data to more people, using it to help change lives, creating educational content and collaboration opportunities for data professionals across the world. So I think it's fair to say that Eva is a perfect fit for this podcast. So I want to find out more about this and Eva's involvement in the Visualize Gender Equality project that's designed to harness the power of data visualization to raise awareness of extreme gender inequality and catalyze global action to end it. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to London so we can speak with Eva right now. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Eva. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Eva Murray. I'm a tech evangelist at Exasol, and that's where I help organizations maximize the value of their data. And then in my spare time, I co-lead the largest global social data project. It's called Eva Monday. And I have published 2 books. One is about data visualization best practices. So it draws a lot of inspiration from Eva Monday. And then there's a new one that just came out in October 2020. It's called Empowered by Data. And it provides guidelines for organizations that want to build their data culture by having internal analytics communities.
And not only that, you're incredibly busy. You also host your own podcast. Is that right?
I do, yeah. With my colleague Helena, we have a podcast called Data Espresso.
Fantastic. And I've got to ask something I always ask every guest on here. I'm constantly fascinated by where the guest's passion for technology came from and what inspired them to pursue a career in technology. I've got a feeling there's got to be a story there. So where did your passion come from?
There is a bit of a story, and it started very accidentally. At university, I studied HR and psychology, and I applied to be an HR consultant at Deloitte back in New Zealand. And they took me on, but they put me into technology consulting, kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. And I thought at the time, this is really scary, but they're pretty successful. I'm sure they know what they're doing, so I'll just roll with it. And I'm really glad that's happened, because over that last decade that I've been working, I was able to work with really interesting people and organizations on using technology so they could enable change and innovation, but also progress and innovation. And it means that the people I got to work with, they were able to kind of disconnect a bit from all the grind and focus on what value can they add as the people with their own unique talents and skills and the perspective that they bring. And I was able to be part of that, using technology to enable them to do more and better things. And that was just hugely satisfying. So ever since I realized that, I'm like, hey, this is for me.
And as someone that has had an incredibly successful tech career and also had first-hand experiences working in a male-dominated industry, what have been your biggest challenges? And I've got to ask, have you encountered gender bias on your journey?
Yeah, my biggest challenge has been being underestimated. Yeah. That's definitely the biggest one. And I think there are biases that we as people have, and they mean that so many situations are just more difficult or complicated than they need to be. And what I try to do is to see that as an opportunity, because when you're being patronized or underestimated, it means you have to prove your ability and your competence and your grit over and over and over again. So I try to do that and just prove myself through the quality of my work. And in hindsight, that certainly paid off. And it meant that I had a stronger skill set as a result, and that people now I'm at the point where they recognize my contributions without making me jump through hoops. So that's really nice. But I think it shouldn't be so difficult. I think we should all embrace what people can contribute, especially when they're experts in their field and when they're more skilled and more knowledgeable and experienced than we are ourselves. So for myself, the approach I like to take is, before I jump to a conclusion about someone, maybe just stop talking for a minute, start listening to them a bit more, see what they have to say before I cast judgment, and maybe, try and wrestle my way into a conversation. And I think that's definitely something I would love for more people to embrace. And yes, I have encountered gender bias, but I also want to say I'm not free from bias myself. Yeah. And what I try to do at the moment is just recognize all these situations where a bias comes up, and I think, oh, Eva, maybe think about that one again, and just to see what are those situations and what triggers it, and work on that myself, because I can't change other people, but I can try and become less biased myself, whether it's about gender or otherwise.
And man, wouldn't the world be a better place, especially the online digital space at the moment, if everyone just took the time to take a step back, listen to an opposing view, maybe meet them halfway and have a debate. It sounds so simple, but that's all it's required, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe some thinking, and maybe also thinking, is my answer going to add any value to this conversation, or am I just stoking the fires? And yeah. I sometimes have to remind myself as well to say, Eva, just step away from it. You're not going to really add anything valuable if you become defensive or something like that. So sometimes it's best to just not engage.
Absolutely. And I've got to ask, can you tell me a little bit more about the Visualize Gender Equality project and your involvement in that? Because I did a little bit of research before you came on here. Again, incredibly valuable work, but can you share that with the listeners?
Yeah, it's a really exciting project. It's a collaborative effort. So at Exasol, we have a partner organization called Operation Fistula, and they really lead that initiative. And then Makeover Monday and the Tableau Foundation, they are partners supporting the project. And Visualize Gender Equality, we also call it Viz5, because on social media, hashtags and short words are the way to go. So Viz5, because the work is explicitly connected to the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 5, and that's to achieve gender equality and to empower all women and girls. And what this initiative aims to do is to mobilize the power of this really large global Makeover Monday community that encompasses lots of data people who love analyzing and visualizing data. And we provide them over the course of 12 months with 12 different data sets. So we pick one a month, and they have featured different topics that all present the different themes, the different areas of gender equality. And what we want to achieve is to tell the story of, where is gender inequality still happening? Where is it at its most extreme? And we launched this year on International Women's Day. That's a day where we want to celebrate the social, the economic, and cultural and political achievements of women, and really focus on, hey, this is a call to action. We still need to accelerate gender equality. And that seemed like a good day to launch it. And it's been really exciting and successful in bringing stories to life through data and data visualization, that the organizations that are involved behind the scenes in providing data sets, they wouldn't be able to tell by themselves, because they might have one person working with data, maybe two, maybe none. And here suddenly there are literally hundreds of people willing to spend a few hours to create really cool visual data stories that they can share with the world.
And what were the biggest discoveries on that exploration of data and women in data? Was there any surprises in there?
How much I don't know.
Yeah. That
was what I found surprising, especially when I tackled those Viz5 topics for myself, building my own visualizations. I was reminded that, as a white woman who was born and grew up in Germany, a very wealthy country, I literally had no exposure to some of those horrific health and social situations that others are dealing with. So it was really eye-opening for me, and it's made me more determined that I should use my platform and my network to create something good for others. And while I'm not a healthcare expert or have lots of years of experience in the nonprofit sector, what I can do is support the team at Operation Fistula through this VIS5 campaign and use the platform that I do have to reach people that can be involved. And then when it comes to women in data, I think there's still a lot of work that we need to do collectively to create opportunities and also visibility, especially for young women and girls who might want to enter the sector. But in my opinion, they shouldn't have to wrestle with the tech bro culture that can sometimes still be present in organizations and online.
And you raised a great point there, that the biggest surprise was how much you didn't know. So after raising awareness of extreme gender inequality, I'm curious, how did businesses react? Because I would imagine that, I would hope that for the most part, they were genuinely horrified and had no idea. And when they discovered that, how did they commit to ending it?
Yeah, we definitely had a lot of engagement from the business community and people asking us about this project, much like you are, and wanting to be supportive, people pledging their support and trying to get more people involved. But the launch of this campaign is just the beginning. It's really to mobilize a collective force of people and their collective brain power. So we're going to use these visualizations that people create to tell the stories of the women and girls that are actually behind the data. And we're going to be able to magnify the impact that those advocacy organizations can have by just giving them all these assets and saying, here, this is how you can share this. And it helps them not just tell their story, but also in their funding processes and in their engagement with government organizations, etc. So we want to help all of those organizations aim to achieve that SDG 5 to create an equal future for every woman everywhere.
And when researching you, I also learned that you've made a huge difference by fighting things such as HIV and malaria. And I'm curious, did data or technology play a big role in those fights too?
Yeah, that's really where it started for me, being involved with these nonprofits in the healthcare sector that is also very data related or connected to data. And there is a project called Visualize No Malaria, and it's run by Path, and it combines public health organizations and private sector technology partners. So it's a really unique combination. And we at Exasol joined that project in 2017, so we could contribute our database technology and our experience to help the project make a difference to the lives of people in Zambia. Because what people might not know about malaria is it's one of the deadliest diseases in the world. It kills about 1 million people per year, and 90% of those cases are actually occurring in Zambia. So that's a place where if you can make a difference, it makes a huge difference on a global scale. So with the help of the Zambia Ministry of Health, what the target is to end malaria in Zambia by the end of 2021. So the project is run by PATH. It's the Program for Appropriate Technology in Health. They're based out of Seattle, and they brought together these technology partners to contribute all the different data technologies that would help them handle the data that they are using to, on the one hand, run these day-to-day operations in the field. So there will be patient data, there will be case files as people get tested and treated. But also there's going to be completely different data sets around the weather, the geography, wind, rain, all those patterns that influence where these mosquitoes can actually breed and what's going to happen. So predicting where the next outbreak could occur based on this data. And that's where we come in with our technology and where we've helped with the other technology partners as well. And what I find so fascinating about this project is let's use all of this data to figure out what we need to do next. Where do the healthcare workers need to go? Where do they need to provide nets to cover beds and to protect people in their houses, etc.? Because if you can predict it, you can prevent more infections while also using the right resources in the right place at the right time to treat existing infections as well.
And if there was any good to come out of 2020, because it is going to be remembered for all the wrong reasons, but I do think that it has created an almost thirst for change to make the world a better place collectively, especially as we start concentrating on things like sustainability and using technology to do more with less as those resources of the world begin to shrink. So I've got to ask, what excites you, or at least makes you hopeful of what 2021 could bring?
being surrounded by the talented people and the motivated people in my work, but also the communities that I operate in, I think that's really what's helping me feel positive that we're able to drive some change in the future. But I've also learned that it's not just that we need to really be the change that we want to see in the world, but that we all have the opportunity to really make a difference. We all have something unique that we bring, and what we need to do is to discover it, shape it, and then really share it with the world. So I think if we allow ourselves to be the most amazing version of ourselves and bring that out and see where we can contribute, where we can add value, where we can help others, that's going to be a huge, huge opportunity to drive change and create a better 2021 than 2020 has been.
Absolutely love that, my kind of language. And what's next for Exasol and indeed yourself? Is there anything you can share on that front?
Yeah, I mean, as a company, we're growing. We have an ever-growing team of people, and we have exciting stuff planned for the coming year. And I might not be able to share all the details, but what I do want to encourage people who are listening is to actually follow along with the journey and maybe even consider joining us if they can see themselves in that. And for myself, I'm really determined to continue using my voice and my platform to be a driving force in women's empowerment in this industry. I actually just recently launched a platform called the Maple Square, where we showcase women speakers in the data and tech industry, because there's been this complaint that, we can't find any women to speak. And I think that's an excuse, and I want to remove any reason for that excuse. So we're going to showcase these women who have unique specializations and expertise and who are willing to share that with audiences across the globe. And what I've also done is I started co-hosting a women's writers club, because as I've written a couple of books myself, I've learned so much about the process. And I know there are so many people who would have really valuable stories to share, but they might just find it really daunting or not know where to start. So I want to bring together women who have already written and published books, and those who are writers and maybe novice authors and who want to write and publish books and are just not quite sure where to start. They may be looking for mentors and buddies. So that's launched recently as well, to get all of those women connected and helping each other out.
Wow, I love that. What a great thing to do. And where can people find out more information about that? And indeed, your podcast, of course, we'll just remind people where they can find that, and all the great work that you're doing, from your books to the work you're doing at Exasol. I understand it's so many different places, but I will put all the links on the blog post just to help spread the word so people can find where they can get their voice heard and continue this conversation we started today.
Sure, yeah. It'll be great. I would love to connect with your listeners. So people can find me on LinkedIn if they search for Eva Murray. On Twitter, I'm under Try My Data, and try is TRI because it comes from triathlon. And then on my website, trymydata.com, you can find everything and anything you need about Exasol on exasol.com. So it's EXASOL. And if you are a woman who would like to be featured on the speaker platform, I would love for people to go to themaplesquare.com and fill in the submissions form so I can include them. And lastly, our Data Espresso podcast, you can find anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's called Data Espresso. So data and then Expresso.
Well, one of the things that I always say at the end of every episode is technology works best when it brings people together. It's the reason I started this podcast, and why every day I'll get somebody their voice and I'm on this platform to share what the great work that they're doing. And I love how you're doing exactly the same now. And that is what it's all about. So I'll put all the links to everything that you mentioned there in the blog post so people can find you nice and easily, and they can get their voice out there as well. It's so important, and that's what technology should be for. But more than anything, just a big thank you for taking the time and share that story with me today.
Thanks for having me, Neil.
So many big talking points there from Eva, in particular the exploration of data and women in data, and her experiences working in a male-dominated industry, as well as overcoming the struggles brought by gender bias in the world of data, is nothing short of inspiring. But I think the growing prominence of the Chief Data Officer, the CDO, and the buzz around data literacy and how organisations need to introduce not just a digital transformation, but a data transformation too, is incredibly exciting. As is the intelligent use and the understanding of data and how integral they're becoming to the success of charities and other non-profits. But we've covered a lot of ground today, and I would love to hear more about your insights, your experiences. And if you have any questions or you want to come on the podcast, simply email me now, techblogwriter@outlook.com. If you'd like to work with me or browse through over 1,400 interviews, pop by my website, techblogwriter.co.uk. So a big thank you to Eva for coming on the show today, and an even bigger thank you to each and every one of you for listening. I'll be back tomorrow with another guest, but until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.